with Manchester United, whose supporters might have been hoping for a quiet international break after that much-needed win over Sunderland. Not a jot of it, though. Minority owner Sir Jim Ratcliffe has said that he wants to give Ruben Amorim 3 years in the job to prove himself. At least he said that's what it'll take to prove himself. Asmir, 3 years for Amorim, do you think that's a good thing, bad thing, normal in football land? Not really.
Well, I think it's a good thing for the manager, of course. I think they have the backing of an owner, and having his long-term vision is it's fantastic for him. I think it's definitely not normal these days. I think most owners don't have too much patience with teams, and they want to see immediate results. So I think for an owner to come out so publicly to back the manager in this long-term fashion is quite unusual these days. So I think for him it's a positive thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite heartening to see such a vocal support, as you said. But if they go and lose their next 3 games, does that all become quite irrelevant, do you think?
It could all change. It could all change. I think this day and age in football, as we said earlier, it's about instant results and change. And I think as ultimately football is a results business. We all know that. We live and die by our results. And I think that's the same for Ruben Amorim. So I think for him, he has to continue to win. I know he's won 3 home games in a row, which again is a step in the right direction for him and his team. But I think ultimately he needs to keep winning. He needs to keep the supporters on side as much as he can.
Yeah, exactly. You
and
mentioned
he has to
wins.
keep the belief from the supporters and the players. And I think it's going to be very difficult because obviously Liverpool away is the next game for them, and that's going to be a tricky one with Liverpool wanting to bounce back as well. So he needs to keep winning, needs to keep getting results, and there's no getting away from that.
Yeah, I mean, they look tough fixtures, like you say, Liverpool next. They may or may not. I mean, Liverpool aren't in the greatest vein of form at the moment. So if they got a victory over Liverpool, that would go some way in making a bit of a statement, wouldn't it?
Would be huge. Would be huge. I mean, it's maybe a time, not the worst time to play Liverpool with recent results, but at the same time, you know, Liverpool could be that wounded animal coming back after this international break, really wanting to kick on. So I think those games, Liverpool against Manchester United, they're always going to be heated. There's always going to be special occasions, no matter the run of form each team is on. So I think it'll be a big challenge for him and his team, and you know, there's no getting away from him. Even Brighton after that is a difficult game, so he needs to continue to collect points.
Asma, we've seen a lot of Plan A from Ruben Amorim. Do we need to see Plan B if he's to survive 3 years?
Seems very stuck on Plan A.
He does.
That's definitely the case, which I respect in a certain way, because I think, you know, as a manager, you need to come in and transfer those beliefs into the players, into the staff, and everyone surrounding around the club. There comes a point where results are important. You know, it's not all about the way you play football at times. So results become important. At what point does he shuffle the deck a little bit, maybe changes and makes certain adjustments to get more and more results? Now, I think for him, he's brought in certain players, made changes on the playing front, and within the squad to bring players in for that system. So for him, it's a big call. It's a big call. Like I said, I really respect the philosophy and the fact that he's sticking to it. But at the same time, we've seen also the best managers in the world, you know, Pep Guardiola, like Mikel Arteta, adjust at times when it needed to because of obviously reasons to get those results. So something I wouldn't be surprised if he did at some point, but it seems very stuck in his ways at the moment.
He does. And he was last week at Carve, bringing you in here, because he was last week kind of blaming pundits for getting into his players' heads. Now, Sir Jim seems to be suggesting that the media wants knee-jerk reactions. Journalists like you, young man. Have you and the rest of the media, do you feel been calling for his head or calling for him to go? Do you feel that's fair?
I don't think it is. Look, I'm a journalist, so I'm going to defend journalists. I was a bit surprised by what Jim Ratcliffe said, saying that, you know, he wasn't going to listen to the knee-jerk reaction of some journalist, as he called them. I have to say that Manchester United are such a big club. I would compare them to Real Madrid. If Real Madrid lose to Grimsby, with all due respect, if Real Madrid finish 15th in La Liga, imagine what the Spanish media would do to whoever would be the Real Madrid head coach at the time. For what it's worth, I think the media have been very, very fair to Ruben Amorim. I think if you're covering Ruben Amorim, all you need to do is go to his news conferences. You don't really need to make up stories, just report what he says, because he's the one who comes up with the sound bites. So in short, I do think Jim Ratcliffe was a little bit unfair to journalists, because I think the journalists who are covering United have been fair and impartial. OK, there's been a few comments. I think Jamie Carragher a couple of weeks ago said he expected Ruben Amorim to lose his job. But even then, he said, look, it's not something that he likes to talk about. He was just asked a question and he gave an honest response.
Just finally on this, are we being a little bit, and I know I might be part of the Journalists Guild as well, but are we being a little bit naive as journalists when a manager comes out and says, some days I want to quit? You know, he wasn't quite saying that. I know it was a great soundbite for everyone to go, Amorim says he wants to quit and, you know, that he hates some of his players. But are we kind of like taking him on face value when perhaps, because he's being so honest, we should actually read between the lines of those comments and say, well, maybe he didn't quite mean to say that.
But he's saying a lot of these comments. It's not just a one-off. I think, I go back to my point about Real Madrid. If you're the head coach of Real Madrid, you have to keep a lid on it. You know, Sir Alex Ferguson always used to say, when you're the Manchester United manager, you can't feed the beast. When you go into a press conference, you should dictate what you want to say. You shouldn't get led up the garden path by a journalist.
But maybe he's been a nouveau kind of type of manager that actually wants to be a bit more honest with.
Well, I'm not sure that's going to work at Manchester United, because if you speak to any sports editor, they will tell you that you will never go wrong by filling your sports pages with stories about Manchester United. Everything is a story at Manchester United, and you don't need to feed the beast, in the words of Sir Alex Ferguson.
All right, let's turn our attention to another top journalist. Dave Reed is at the big screen to examine some of those claims about Amorim. Start over to you, journalist Dave.
Thank you, Vicky. Thank you. Yes, Sir Jim Ratcliffe has compared Ruben Amorim and Mikel Arteta, saying that the Arsenal manager had a miserable time over the first couple of years at Arsenal. Amorim has now managed 50 games at Manchester United, so we can compare his start to that of Mikel Arteta. Now, the first thing you're going to notice here is that Arteta had a better win rate. Amorim has won 8 fewer games than Arteta did in his first 50. They've scored a similar number of goals here, but it's the goals against which you'll see a major difference. Amorim's team has conceded 28 more goals than Arsenal did, and they've really struggled for clean sheets as well. They've conceded more than twice on 21 occasions, including against Grimsby and Burnley just this season, and they've conceded 3 or more goals on 9 occasions as well. They let in 4 at Newcastle and Brentford at the back end of last season. It's those heavy defeats which are harder to stomach for ex-players and, of course, the supporters as well. So Mikel Arteta built his side from the defence first, and he also showed a degree of flexibility. As you'll know, yes, we are talking about that formation again. Amorim has used a 3-at-the-back system in every game in charge so far. Arteta, on the other hand, used 6 different formations, including a 3-at-the-back, in his first 50 games. He went on record to say that ideally he wanted to move towards a 4-at-the-back setup, but that the players at Arsenal that were currently then at his disposal suited a back 3 or 5, and it allowed his attacking players to be in better areas of the pitch to exploit their skill set. Ruben Amorim has done something slightly different. And just to give you an idea of how things can change, this is Arteta's lineup for his 50th game in charge. Only Gabriel and Ødegaard remain. How different then might